Yeah.
Okay. يعني for example, for example, to take an idea about what is the meaning of modeling chemical reactions. Good morning, Natalie Dot. طيب. Do you see the whiteboard?
Yes.
Okay. For example, iron, as you know, reacts with oxygen in the air, and they form what? Rust.
Form of rust.
Yes, this is a chemical, an example of chemical change or a chemical reaction. This is rust or iron oxide. Rust is called iron oxide. Type. As you know, we call iron and oxygen, what we call them?
Iron and oxygen اللي هم لا مش
excellent.
reactants.
Reactants, excellent. And iron oxide is
product.
Fine. Now in science, we can model to make it as for us easier to talk about this reaction. It is hard to write always iron plus oxygen. We use symbols and numbers to represent this reaction. Look at this. Look here, please. This chemical reaction can be modeled or represented as like this. Iron, Fe means what? Iron. O means what? Oxygen.
Oxygen.
Fe2O3, this is FeO, it is the rust or rust or iron oxide. This is an example of how to model a chemical reaction. It is easier for us to show this reaction in this way. By the way, these numbers, what is the meaning of these numbers? We will learn about these numbers in details, inshallah, later in this lesson. طيب, let's start. الآن الكتاب مفتوح عندكم؟ الكتاب مفتوح؟ طيب. طيب, chemical equations. You know what are equations in math?
Yes.
Okay, so there are also chemical equations in science or in chemistry. You can communicate.
JK, just kidding معناها.
Okay, طيب راح نحكيها. مثلا in chatting, for example, when you are chatting with your friend, you use what? Abbreviations like JK. يعني زيد العمر لا please. طيب مش مشكلة. Thank you زيد. Don't worry.
شفتها يا زيد شفتها.
Don't worry. طيب. مثلا when I say for you are you shoes خلاص فيش داعي أضل أكتب are you shoes. I can say مثلا for example.
Shall talk to you later. TTYL. Laugh out loud. LOL. BTW by the way.
يعني you I tell you that I mean AUS are you shoes for example. Just kidding, you can write it like this. Okay, these are abbreviations. The same thing. The same thing is true for in science. I can say, for example, instead of iron, I can write it as you in the periodic table. It is Fe. Water is known as you know, H2O. Okay, this is water. For example, table salt. It is NaCl. Right. These are abbreviations, or we can model or abbreviate chemical compounds or elements in science by these symbols. It is easier for us to deal with these symbols and numbers. Right. When you communicate with friends using digital devices, you probably use symbols, abbreviations, and other ways to shorten your message. Yes. This makes communication more efficient. Instead of typing just for kidding, yani always you want to type just kidding, you may just write, okay? مثلا زي هيك مثلا خلينا نحكي لما بحكي لنسرين هيك شو رايكم مين بيعرف لي ايش اختصار لايش؟ بدل اقول لنسرين لما اقول لها زي هيك احذروا شو معناها هاي؟
مودرن وورفير ما بعرف.
لا مبرد وجهك.
Mouse house.
ما ابرد وجهك هيك قصدي. معنى
أستاذ
نسرين
شو الاختصار هذا ملوش معنى اصلا.
طيب اوكي. ناو سوري مش تزعل نسرين. طيب just kidding is an abbreviation for what? Just kidding. JK. To convey the same information. Science and chemistry in particular also make us shorthand language. Don't highlight anything. This is just introduction. Also in chemistry, we use these abbreviations. Now, a chemical equation. What is the chemical equation? It is a way highlighted to describe a chemical reaction using symbols instead of words. This is the meaning of chemical equation. Chemical equation means it is a way to describe a chemical reaction using symbols instead of words. Right.
Like there's a abbreviation for weird.
Yes.
Western, educated, industrial, rich, and democratic.
By the way, يعني the abbreviations are used in everything in our life. يعني for example, euro, it is abbreviated as like this. For example, OPEC. Do you know what is OPEC? Countries that produce oil. Oil, for example, oil producing and exporting countries.
Or NATO.
Yes, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, exporting countries. It is abbreviated as the same thing. For example, another example for abbreviations, UAE. What is it's abbreviated for what?
نسرين لما حكيت لها مبرد وجهك ما كانتش اصلا سامعه.
والله ما كانتش موجوده.
لا.
DRC.
What is
DRC?
What is UAE?
United Arab Emirates.
UR element.
What is
UR United Arab Emirates.
United Arab Emirates. USA.
And the DRC. Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes, USA, for example, it is also United States of America. So all abbreviations are not only in science, not only in chemistry. Fine. So a chemical equation, it is a way to describe the chemical reaction using symbols instead of words. Fine. Chemical equations are shorter than sentences. If you want to say that iron combines with oxygen and they form rust, it is very long, or it is you are using sentences, but you can write it easier by using chemical equation. Type. Chemical equations are shorter, of course, than sentences, but they contain all of the necessary pieces of information to summarize a chemical. Okay. Yes, the chemical equations are shorter, but they must contain all the informations about the chemical reactions. By looking at the chemical equations, you can find everything about the chemical reactions. For example, by looking at the equation, you can find the reactants, the products, and the energy that is released, and if there are catalysts or not. So all informations are found in the chemical. It's very important. It contains chemical equations, contain all the necessary information to summarize a chemical reaction. Yes, it's a summary, but it must contain all the necessary information. Just as a cell phone user who reads JK, just kidding, needs to learn what that stands for. Scientists needs to learn how to read and write chemical equations. When you are studying, when you study chemistry, or when you are a scientist, you must learn all the symbols, all the informations that enable you to read the chemical equation. Not anyone can read the chemical equation. You must know, for example, the symbols of the elements. Okay, طيب. The chemical equations that summarize the reaction that makes rust is shown in the caption figure 1 as here. This is an example of a chemical equation. This chemical equation shows the reaction of or the formation of rust. I can just by looking at this equation, I can know that the reactants are what? Iron and oxygen.
Iron and oxygen.
And the product
And
is
the product is
iron
rust.
oxide or rust. Iron, we have 4 atoms of iron, 3 molecules of oxygen. Okay, this subscript, this is called, this number 2 means it is a subscript. It means that there are 2 oxygen atoms. There are 2 oxygen atoms. Here, this subscript means that 2 iron atoms. Here, 3 oxygen atoms. Understood? Right. Look here, please. If you see any compound or any metal, look here. This is, for example, H2O. It is water. This number 2 is called what?
Subatomic atom.
Subscript. That means we have how many hydrogen atoms?
2 hydrogen atoms and
right.
1
This
oxygen
number 2
atom.
for H, not for O. But why there is no subscript next to O?
Because oxygen only have 1
Excellent.
atom.
When there is only 1 atom, we don't write 1. It is well known in science that it is 1. So we don't write 1. Type. Look at this chemical compound. It's not water. Do you know what is it? تعرف شو اسمه in science?
ايش هو؟
It is called hydrogen peroxide. طيب.
Yes.
طيب. Here, how many atoms of hydrogen we have in this compound? How many hydrogen atoms?
2.
2. How many oxygen atoms?
2.
Excellent. That's right. Another example. Do you know what is this? Let me continue.
Carbon and hydrogen.
No, this is
and
sugar.
Oxygen.
It's glucose. This sugar is made by plants, by photosynthesis. Here, it is made up of 3 types of elements or 3 types of atoms. Carbon,
hydrogen, and oxygen.
For each, how many atoms of carbon? 6. How many of hydrogen
6.
atoms? 12.
12.
Oxygen atoms?
6.
6. Type another compound. For example, this is a natural gas, methane. Do you know what is a natural gas? It's a fossil fuel. Natural gas, its chemical formula CH4. It is made from carbon and hydrogen. How many carbon atoms we have?
6.
How many here? How many carbon atoms we have?
1.
0.
1. No 0.
1.
Omar. If a 0,
1.
don't write it 1 because there is no subscript. It's 1. How many hydrogen atoms?
1.
How many hydrogen atoms?
4. 4.
hydrogen atoms 4. عمرو مفهي عمرو.
شو مالكم؟ طيب. Let's take another example. طيب. For example, SI. لا بدناش SI. Here, this is what?
Nitrogen.
Salt.
Sodium
Salt,
chloride.
table salt, yes.
How many sodium atoms we have?
5 or
One.
I don't.
One, because there is
One.
no.
Okay.
How many chlorine atoms?
One,
One
two.
also.
By the way, the ratio between sodium and the chlorine is 1 to 1. طيب. Is it clear?
Yes.
طيب. I don't think so that this is clear. طيب.
أستاذ
I
clear
don't
زي
know.
head and shoulders.
ما فهمتوش يا أستاذ.
طيب wait الآن هسه بنرجع إن شاء الله. So simply the chemical equation, it is a way to describe the chemical change or to describe the chemical reaction using symbols instead of words. طيب. Even the chemical equation is a summary or summarize the chemical reaction, but it must contain all the necessary information to summarize the chemical reaction. طيب. The chemical equation must contain 3 things. Please highlight it. The chemical equation conveys 3 things or show 3 things or must contain the identities of the molecules. What are they? What are the molecules involved in the reaction? Their names or yes, and the elements that make up those molecules, and whether the molecules are products or reactants. And simply, in the chemical equation, the chemical equation, for a correct chemical equation, must show us the molecules involved in the reaction and the elements that make up those molecules, and whether the molecules are products or reactants. For example, in this reaction, here we can know that it is this reaction between iron and oxygen. Oxygen here is a molecule. It is made up of 2 atoms of oxygen. And this is a chemical compound. It is rust or iron oxide. It is made up of iron and oxygen. It is a product. طيب. Inshallah, this is an introduction. Of course, inshallah, you will understand the chemical equation and how to model it. Inshallah, you will find it easier, inshallah. But just listen to me. طيب, at what time this period end?
أتوقع
We have enough time. We have enough time.
10.
طيب, we have 10 minutes. We have 20 minutes. طيب. Okay. Formulas. The chemical equation or formula. A chemical formula combines the symbols of different elements to represent the molecule, to represent molecules. A chemical formula combines what? The symbols of different elements to represent molecules. يعني simply, the chemical formula of water is what? H2O. Because it shows us that it is made up of hydrogen and oxygen with this ratio, 1 to 2. The ratio of oxygen to hydrogen in this molecule is 1 to 2. 1 oxygen atom, 2 hydrogen atoms.
أستاذ ليش ما نحط 2
chemical
to 1؟
formula إيش؟
ليش ما نحط 2 to 1؟ لأنه الهيدروجين بيجي أول، مش فاهم.
لا خلص ها. Oxygen, if you put oxygen to hydrogen, it is 1 to 2, or as you like. Hydrogen is 2, oxygen is 1. The ratio is 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. Okay? For example, the chemical formula for table salt is Na Cl. It is 1:1. The chemical formula must represent or show the elements that make up the compound or the molecule. Is it clear?
Yes.
So the chemical formula combines the symbols of different elements that to represent molecules. For example, formula of water is H2O. H is the symbol for what? Hydrogen. And O is the symbol for oxygen. Right. The subscript, now, this is very important. The subscript number next to a letter shows how many atoms of that element are in the molecule. Highlight it, please, and understand it. The subscript, where is the subscript? This is, for example, this number 2. It is a subscript.
It always comes between
It comes after,
two.
not before. So this 2, it's not for oxygen. It is for what? Hydrogen. The subscript number next to a letter shows how many atoms of that element are in the molecule. It is next to the element or to the letter of the element, not before. Time. So according to water formula, there are 2 hydrogen atoms. How can we know? Because of this subscript. And if there is no subscript, it doesn't mean, Ya Uthman, that is, if there is no subscript, it doesn't mean it's 0. It means there is only 1. Yani in science, we don't write 1. If there is 1 atom, we don't write anything. If there is no subscript, that means we have 1 atom. Clear? Fahmeen?
Clear.
If there is no subscript, it means there is no, there is only 1 atom of that element. So there is only 1 oxygen atom, 1 atom of oxygen in water, because there is no subscript here. Fine. So this is, I want you to understand the formula. If you understand what is the meaning of formula, you can understand chemical equations well. All compounds, all molecules, all elements in science have formula. The formula is made up of abbreviation or the letter of that represent the element and the number of atoms involved. What is the structure of the equation? Look, when you want to draw any or to model any chemical reaction, when you want to write any equation, it must be like this. Reactant plus reactant. If there also another reactant, yani you put the reactants, you put a plus between them, then you put an arrow, then you put the product.
بس لو مثلا حطينا شغله زي الكاتاليست كيف راح تكون؟ الكاتاليست مش reactant.
يعني
inhibitors.
In general, catalysts are not shown in the chemical equations.
Okay.
طيب. In all chemical reactions, all chemical equations share a basic structure. And all chemical reactions have the same structure. Any type of chemical equation have the same structure. Okay, but a chemical equation indicates the substances involved in a reaction and the substances that are formed as a result of the reaction. Okay, it shows or indicates or represent the substances that involved in the reaction and the substances that are formed or result from the reaction. The formulas for the reactants are written on the left. Look, put your hand. Reactants are always to the left of the arrow or to the left of the equation, while the products are to the right. The formulas for the reactants, okay, are written on the left, followed by an arrow. The arrow means yields. Yani what is the meaning of the arrow? Yields or give, or yani arrow means equal. Yani in math, yani it is the same as equal in math. Yields, give us, yields, give us, تعطينا يعني. The arrow means yields or reacts for. This is the meaning of the arrow. The formulas for the product are to the right, are written to the right of the arrow. Is it clear?
أستاذ هذا بدك إياه كله نسوي له
Yes.
هايلايت.
By the way, Laith, you can just, if you understand it, there's no problem to memorize it.
Okay.
Yani this, for example, this diagram or this one is if you understand this, it is enough. You don't need to memorize all of this. Yani what is the meaning of arrow? Yields. What are these substances or elements or compounds that to the left of the are reactants? To the right are product. Understood? Type. What is the meaning of plus? If there are two or more reactants, they are separated by a plus sign. And if we have, suppose that we have another reactant, we should put plus and its chemical, for example, chemical formula. If two or more products form, they are also separated by plus. And for example, A plus B give us or yields C plus D.
Yes.
Okay, again, I will give you another example. Suppose that I want to show that when sodium hydroxide, it is a base, if you remember. This is a base. It is called sodium hydroxide. Okay. Sorry, خلينا أكتبها أول شيء in sentences. Sodium hydroxide. It is a base when it combines with hydrogen chloride or hydrochloric acid. Hydrogen chloride. They give us what? They give us water plus salt or table salt. Okay? Fine. This is a neutralization reaction. How can I make a chemical equation, or how can I write it in symbols or a chemical equation? Sodium hydroxide, its chemical symbol is NaOH. Notice that this is sodium, it's an element, and this is oxygen, and this is hydrogen. OH, if you remember, it is a to make a group. It is hydroxide. Okay, plus, what can I write instead of hydrogen chloride? It is HCl. These are the reactants. We have two reactants. Now, what should I write here? مين يقول لي? An arrow yields what? Water.
NaCl.
Yes, yields water and NaCl, which is a table salt. Okay, so we have two products, two reactants, two products. This is an arrow, and this is a chemical equations. Okay, clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Reactant, product. Okay. Sometimes there is, by the way, some cases there is only one product. Sometimes we have 2, 3, 4, whatever. Yani, chemical reactions are not always 2 will give you 2. Sometimes you combine 2 substances to give 1 substance. Okay, bye. The numbers in the front of each component in the equation show how many particles of the reactants are needed and how many particles of the products are formed during the reaction. Again, the numbers in front of each component in the equation show how many particles of the reactants are needed and how many particles of the products are formed. To understand this, look here. Now, I'm not talking about the subscript. What is the number 4 means? What number 4? What is the meaning of number 4 here? So we have, we need
the first element in the
we need
table.
We need 4 particles or 4 atoms of oxygen to react with the 3 molecules of water. Okay, again, 4 atoms. Look at this paragraph.
الأو هي أكسجين، الأف إي اللي هي
خليني بس أكمل شوي.
ايرون.
طلع. The numbers in front. شو يعني front؟ قبل. Okay? Or the numbers in front of each component in the equation show how many particles of the reactants are needed and how many particles of products are formed during the reaction. Like this. We will take an example, by the way, another example. When, do you know what is the meaning of the equation? When 4 atoms of iron react with the 3 molecules of oxygen, again, when 4 atoms of iron react with the 3 molecules of oxygen, they yield or give us 2 particles or 2 compounds of iron oxide or 2 particles of iron oxide. This is the meaning of the front numbers. They are different from the subscript. The subscript always show the number of atoms. Okay? The subscript show the number of atoms. And for example, in this compound, this is iron oxide. We have 2 atoms of iron and the 3 atoms of oxygen. But in general, we have 2, this 2, look at here, please. 2 Fe 2O3 like this. You can imagine it like this. It is in math like this. When you say that 2 multiplied by, for example, 5 plus 3. So this 2 multiplied by all of them. We have 2.
16 يا أستاذ.
And for example, how many atoms? Can you tell me how many atoms of iron we have in this equation? We have 2 multiplied by 4. How many oxygen atoms? 3. 6. That means 2 Fe2O3 means Fe2O3 2 times. This molecule is repeated 2 times. The same thing for this. Look, we have 4 iron atoms. Here we have 3 oxygen molecules or 6 atoms of oxygen. Because, as you know, فاهمين ولا خربطوا؟ طلع.
لا أستاذ فاهمين.
3O2 means 3 molecules of O2. 3OO. This number or this molecule is repeated 3 times. So how many oxygen atoms we have? 6. 2 multiplied by 3. طيب. Again, the numbers in front of each component in the equation show how many particles of the reactants are needed and how many particles of products are formed during the reaction. These numbers called coefficients. Okay. These are called coefficients. They are completely different from subscripts. طيب. Why these numbers important? Because they help us balance the equation. We need always to balance the equation according to the.
ناخذ math science.
Do you remember the law of conservation of mass?
Yes.
طيب. Look here. Look at the reactants. How many iron atoms we have in the reactants? 4. So we must have 4 atoms of iron in the product. 2 multiplied by 2, it's 4, and this is 4. How many oxygen atoms we have in the reactant? 6. We must have 6 too here. We must have 6 in the products. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. So this equation is balanced.
صراحة بتخربط شوي.
لا متخربطش. Don't worry. These coefficients are important to balance the equation. Okay, so that the numbers of atoms in the reactants, please highlight it. The numbers or the number of atoms in the reactants equals the number of atoms in the products. Please, if the number of atoms in the reactants are not equal to the number of atoms in the products, so your equation is wrong. If the number of atoms in the reactants are not equal to the number of atoms in the products, so your equation is wrong. Yani, if you have, for example, here we have 4 iron atoms. If we have here 3, so your equation is wrong. You have 6 oxygen atoms here, so you must have 6 oxygen atoms here. You have 4 iron atoms here, you must have 4 iron atoms here. طيب. I want you.
يعني هاي الإكويجن مش.
Please.
أستاذ بدي أسألك هسا هاي الإكويجن اللي كنت فيها أنت هسا تعبت الراس. هسا هي هاي